Hello and welcome back to the Pitchside podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the BSB. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts or any other platform. Follow us on social media, site BSB on Twitter, Pitchside Pod on Instagram, and join us for more. Welcome to this magazine episode 148. Before we get into the meat of the episode, let's kick things off with some Friday night football. Kicking things off with the Premier League, where Leicester City, in a shocking result, lost 4-2 against Newcastle United. I mean, if you didn't watch the game, you probably would think Newcastle United dominated and they had more chances and all of that. But it wasn't. It wasn't the case. It was Leicester City who had the more chances, who were pretty much unlucky for missing loads of opportunities for the whole game. Newcastle United picked them up on the counter pretty much. It was a ridiculous game. With 32% of possession, Newcastle United managed 4 goals. But that's what happens when you defend badly and you open yourself up for counter-attacks, of course. You cannot exactly put your finger on where Leicester City were wrong, but I think the defensive shape about them was really weird yesterday. And when you lose 4 goals against Newcastle United under Steve Bruce, again, this is a crime in my opinion. I mean, the result is weird, and it comes at the very, very wrong time, I think, for Leicester City, considering the matches they're going to have next in the Premier League, because they're going to be facing Manchester United in the league. They still have Chelsea in the FA Cup, and they still have Chelsea in the league, as well as being in the facing Tottenham Hotspur in the last round of the Premier League. So it's going to be, it's going to be quite weird ending for Leicester City of the season, because realistically speaking, they could lose their 4th spot. They could be in jeopardy of losing that top 4 spot. Now they become 2 points ahead of Chelsea, and Chelsea, of course, play on Saturday against Manchester City. If they win, they go 3rd. West Ham also play on Sunday, so it could be quite a change here as Leicester City reach the end of the season in the Premier League. In Spain, Real Sociedad defeated Elche 2-0. Quite the pedestrian win for Real Sociedad. Aris Elizondo scored in the 72nd minute to open the scoring, and Mikel Oyarzabal made it 2-0 late on in the game. In Germany, Stuttgart managed to defeat Augsburg 2-1. Philipp Forster opened in the 11th minute, then Florian Niederlechner equalised in the 15th minute. Sasa Kalajdzic made it 2-1. Stuttgart in the 74th minute. Stuttgart now, with this victory, go 9th in the table of the Bundesliga, as Augsburg slim back to 13th. Moving on now to bigger things, I would say, and of course one of the biggest talking points of the week was Real Madrid being eliminated from the Champions League. And one of the biggest talking points of that, in particular, was what happened with Eden Hazard. Of course, what happened after the game, where he was caught on camera, shaking hands, laughing with the Chelsea players, of course, and that drew all sorts of ire on him. This is, I think, one of the most important aspects of the situation, and it leads to the question opening: why? What is next for Eden Hazard, and why should the Real Madrid fans really trust him to give everything he has to give for Real Madrid? As he said, of course, on Instagram, he said that he's still fighting for the league and he's still going to be a player for Real Madrid, and his dream was to play for them. So he said he apologized for what he did, of course, and that his actions were not intended to infuriate the Real Madrid fans, but they did. And listen, you know that there is cameras, so you cannot escape with those kind of things in today's age. I mean, back in the day or whatever, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. Probably because there would not be too much cameras focusing on you. But now I think, with cameras all over the pitch, with social media ablaze and ready to strike at any moment, really, against any player, I think it's pretty much it's a done deal that people are going to jump on you, and the press is going to jump on you. Obviously, they found a good scapegoat. I think the Spanish press and maybe the Real Madrid fans found a good scapegoat to really deflect them from the elimination of them, from how horrible they were against Chelsea on both legs, and how undeserving they were to go through to the final. Really, they could not deserve to go through to the final, and that's I think fair enough in the two games. I think it's a dead end for Eden Hazard at Real Madrid, of course, and after 1 season and a half at Real Madrid where it was riddled by injury, he had 11 injuries, according to reports. He had 11 injuries statistically at Real Madrid. He played only 40 matches and scored only 4 goals for Real Madrid in almost 2 seasons at the Merengue. And for a player that was hyped up as the next Cristiano Ronaldo, even given the number, brought for 100 million euros plus, didn't get their money worth really, Real Madrid. He lacked fitness, his game time is not that great in return to his money, and also he puts on mostly average performances whenever he's on the pitch. Like, really, realistically speaking, you could really pick on the fingers of your hand, on one hand, you could really pick and count how many times Hazard was good, or how many times Hazard put on a great performance, so to speak. So the question begs itself, what is next for him? Accordingly to the club, of course, or according to a lot of sources, he's up for sale now, and I think it makes sense. He hasn't been up to the hype set for him by the fans or by the club himself. He didn't help his case either. He let himself go on his diet. He messed up his diet. He messed up his fitness regime. He lets himself exposed to injuries, I would say. He's been even lazier than Gareth Bale. And Gareth Bale is like a loathed person in Madrid at the moment. Like, people hate Gareth Bale at Real Madrid. Imagine what they could do to Eden Hazard. At least, Gareth Bale may be lazy, may be careless, maybe just there for the money at this stage of his career. But I don't think that he did anything close to what Eden Hazard did. I don't think it happened. I don't think it really happened. I don't really think that Gareth Bale, did anything close to what Hazard did in terms of being infuriating, like directly infuriating. Yes, Gareth Bale got there in the end and developed quite the annoying personality, I would say, at Real Madrid, but certainly didn't do anything as stupid, quote unquote, as Eden Hazard did. Now I think he's up for sale, according again to a lot of Spanish resources. Jose Pedrol went on a rant in El Chiringuito TV and said and talked about him, extensively, and how he's a shame for the club to have a player like him do it like that, and all of the talk you could expect from a pro Real Madrid press coming after the game like that. Apparently, Real Madrid are accepting offers around 50 million euros for him, for any team that is willing to buy, which is quite the dead end again for Eden Hazard, for someone who had so much potential and left Chelsea with so much hype to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. He ended up being the next Neymar, I would say, with character issues, fitness issues, and all of that, and definitely. This is the kind of action and sort of the kind of path that you don't go down really, really well. And Hazard didn't want to go down that path, but definitely a bit of, a bad mentality crept into the player. The player has potential, has technique in him. We cannot deny that. He's an absolute baller. But certainly when you act like that in a team like Real Madrid, you're going to get loathed and you're going to get absolutely slaughtered by the press and by the fans. And I think rightfully so in his case, because that incident was unnecessary. Shouldn't have been doing that. At least should have been doing that right in front of the camera, knowing that there is cameras that are going to be focusing on him and really trying to pick up his reaction, trying to find anything in him. The Spanish press again would have, I think, content for days talking about the future of Eden Hazard. And again, the reports are suggesting from Marca mostly that he's going to be up for sale. And if that is true, this is going to go down probably as one of the biggest flops in Real Madrid history, really. Only 4 goals in 40 games in return of 160 million euros. It's going to be a ridiculous thing if he leaves. But again, ridiculous yet expected. We all expected this to happen. He hasn't had the best of times at Real Madrid, and probably, maybe he would end up returning somewhere in Lille or in Belgium, maybe, because I don't see any team at the moment that is going to be chomping at the bit to buy Eden Hazard outright now in the top European level, because again, they don't want that smoke, they don't want that trouble on their squad like that. We will see, of course, how things are going to pan out in the next couple of months. If he's going to be sold actually or not, if there's any team that's going to be willing to buy, is it going to go into a Gareth Bale situation? We will know in the next couple of months, but certainly this is very, very haunting and very, very shaming, I think, for Eden Hazard. Moving on from Eden Hazard and all those problems to talk about something I didn't talk about for a while on this podcast. I didn't talk about Bayern Munich for a while, pretty much since the elimination from PSG. I didn't get to sink my teeth talking about Bayern Munich properly or really what's next after that elimination. Now we get to talk about that. And obviously, I'm going to be talking about Bayern Munich's plans for next season, which is certainly going to be a very, very big season, as the club witnesses changes on both the sporting level and the board level. Of course, with Oliver Kahn set to become the sporting director, Oliver Hoeneß is going to be the president of the club instead of Herbert Heiner next season. So there will be quite the pieces moving in the puzzle of the Bayern Munich board, but obviously, I don't really care about those too much. I'm going to care about the sporting changes, which are, of course, big as they come, with Julian Nagelsmann set to become the new coach next season. And that is expected, of course, to come along with new signing. You cannot expect Julian Nagelsmann to come to the club like Bayern Munich and not have a short list of players, at least he wants to buy, on his mind. Certainly, the reports are all over the place if you watch that and if you hear that Achraf Hakimi, the Inter Milan right back, is reportedly on the interest list of Julian Nagelsmann. He's not exactly convinced with Pavard as a right back. Me neither, to be fair. I wasn't convinced with Pavard as a right back. He still didn't hit his 2018 World Cup heights with France, with Bayern. He didn't do the same, let's say. He had, good spells, but definitely not anything consistent. Achraf Hakimi would be a great addition, I would say. His price is going to be around 55 to 60 million euros if he's going to be bought by Bayern. That is going to be quite the hefty price. But again, they paid an even bigger price in Lucas Hernandez. They paid like 75 million euros in Lucas Hernandez, and maybe with next season, with Alaba leaving, a potential for Jerome Boateng leaving, and Javi Martinez leaving, Lucas Hernandez feels like the only option where you could slot in at a centre half and just play Alphonso Davies on the left. And I mean, I'm just imagining, it just dawned on me now, the idea of Alphonso Davies on the left and Achraf Hakimi on the right. Wouldn't those been some good attacking flanks? I mean, defensively, potentially with Julian Nagelsmann, it could be Bayern moving to 3 at the back. I mean, who knows what could happen? It's been a long while since Bayern played a 3 at the back. I mean, since probably some days in the Niko Kovac era, I think, where Bayern played 3 at the back. It had been a long while since Bayern did that. So expect Bayern maybe to change formation under Julian Nagelsmann, play 3 at the back, and Hakimi and Davis become wing backs rather than full backs, and it could be quite the change. Again, so with Hakimi, coming, that's, I think, at the moment, or as it stands, it's only the only confirmed rumor. I mean, ironically saying a confirmed rumor, but the only reported sort of interest for Bayern Munich at the moment. Of course, they already bought Upamecano from Leipzig. There's talks here and there about Camavinga. There's talks here and there about even Erling Haaland for Bayern Munich, but obviously I don't see Bayern Munich putting the money necessary for Dortmund, which is 150 million euros. Maybe they will wait for him next season when he becomes cheaper, half the price at the very least, at the moment when his release clause kicks in. And also there is loads of exits, loads of leaving players. Alaba's going to be leaving. Martinez are certain to be leaving at the end of the season. The rumours intensifying about Lewandowski's future at the club, although I don't believe that Bayern are going to let him go, because the reports are suggesting that Lewandowski is annoyed with the Haaland links to the club, and I don't think Haaland is linked to the club. And I don't see Haaland making a move to Bayern Munich anytime soon. So I think Lewandowski should be assured, I think, that Haaland isn't coming to Bayern Munich. Certainly for money reason purely, Bayern Munich are not going to be willing to put 150 million euros on the table to buy him. So Penny Zahavi could rest assured that his player is not moving anywhere, and he's not making the money that he wants to make off him on a big deal like that, with Chelsea and Man City reportedly interested in Lewandowski if he is to leave Bayern Munich. So obviously, with a new coach, with new players potentially coming, new formation maybe coming, the changes upside in the board, and I think one of the most important changes should be what is going to be happening with Salihamidzic, where Salihamidzic is going to be going after Oliver Kahn takes his place at sporting director, and is he going to go up in the board? Is he going to go really up in the hierarchy of the club and takes a higher position? I don't think so, but I think it's going to be quite the change next season as well. Uli Hoeneß is going to become the president of the club. He's going to have he's going to have the chance to rule with an iron fist, I would say, over the board of Bayern Munich, and really, applies his vision to the club. So again, the 2021-22 season is going to be big for Bayern Munich. It's going to be, I think, one of the few seasons where I would say this is a true overhaul. This is a true sort of passing of the torch, trying to think about the next generation of the Bayern Munich player or the Bayern Munich team for the next maybe decade or so, because it has been a while since Bayern Munich made this sort of radical change or radical shift in their board and in their sporting levels, because every year, Bayern almost made that transition without feeling to make it. Like they replace the pieces that missing with the pieces that they bring in, and they don't seem to have a transitional period. But I think next season could be that transitional period. And of course, it's going to depend on their achievements in the league and achievements in the Champions League, because obviously the league is wrapped up. Like the Bundesliga is going to be won with Nagelsmann or without Nagelsmann, and is going to be won with Hakimi or without Hakimi, but it obviously depends on the Champions League. Everything hinges on how Bayern do in the Champions League. Are they successful in that competition or not? That is the measuring stick for Bayern. So, as far as transitional seasons go, next one might be too crucial for Bayern to see what are they going to be doing in the Champions League and how they're going to be the situation in that competition, regardless of what they do in the Bundesliga, regardless of how they finish there. The Champions League is always going to be the measuring stick, and for someone as ambitious as Nagelsmann is, I think it's going to be quite the challenge not to win it or not to get far in it. I guess the challenge would be to convince the board that he's the man to lead Bayern for the next 3-5 years maybe, and that's why they paid the huge fee that they paid to get him and to poach him away from RB Leipzig. Good luck for him and good luck for the club, and we'll see how things are going to be panning out in the future. Obviously, I wish good luck for him, and I wish all the luck in the world for the team that I support in Bayern Munich. Ending with some Serie A action, of course, and we're previewing the round 35 of the Serie A. Certainly the last hurdle, of course, and the top 4 is, I think, what matters at the moment in the Italian league, with Inter Milan officially clinching the trophy last week, of course, after 10 years of waiting and after a decade of Juve domination in Serie A. Finally, that domination is broken. Inter Milan are winning the league. Of course, Juve still have the top 4 to fight for, and it's pretty tight up there as well. The fixture starts with Spezia and Napoli on Saturday, Udinese facing Bologna, Inter facing Sampdoria, Fiorentina, Lazio, Genoa, Sassuolo, Benevento, Cagliari, Hellas Verona, Torino, that's on Sunday, Parma, Atalanta as well on Sunday, Roma, Crotone, and Juve facing AC Milan. It is going to be quite the change in, of course, in the, it's going to be quite the change, it's going to be quite the battle for the top 4 in Italy, of course, and as we're reaching the last couple of fixtures in Serie A, it's going to be even more intense, and this is going to be one of the defining games, I would say, Juve-Milan. Again, the loser in this one is probably going to be the one more in jeopardy of losing its top 4 spot. Obviously, Juventus, with the mediocre season they've been having, the title defense collapsed, of course. The mediocre results that they have in the Champions League as well, in the league, their performances haven't been convincing. Andrea Pirlo, I think all the fingers are pointing at him at the moment, and if Juve somehow do not make it in the top 4 spots in Serie A, it probably will be that he may be facing the sack, really. And looking at the other games, really, you can see Lazio beating Fiorentina. It's pretty plausible. Parma, Atalanta look like they will defeat Parma pretty much, and they will keep their second spot for themselves. So it all hinges, I think, on the game between Juve and Milan in terms of defining and shaping how that top 4 is going to go heading into the next fixture, where we have another bomber of a match, between Sassuolo and Juventus, a tricky one for Pirlo as well, and where Milan face Torino away from home. So it's going to be quite the fixtures, of course, for both sides, who I mean, considering the season that they've been having, and I mean, considering Milan started the season as title contenders or title challengers or whatever, they're really hoping that they could keep their spot and crossing their fingers that they could have enough in them to just push themselves over the line and, finish in the top four. With the injuries that they've been riddled with this season, the drop of the performances that they had, ending up, from being top of the table going down to fourth. I mean, yes, there's not any point difference between them, but certainly in performance, there is a difference between Milan and Napoli and Atalanta this season. So I think the second half for Milan was so bad that they really need to recover as of late, and these three last fixtures are going to be really important if they want to recover enough points really to keep themselves in the top four. For Juventus, of course, I think life or death really, because they still could win a trophy and that would be nice and decent, but I don't think that the Coppa Italia is a trophy that they want to, and I don't think that it will make people forget a mediocre season that Juventus are having under Andrea Pirlo. So, in my opinion, if they don't make it to the Champions League and they lose and they win the cup, that is going to be even worse than losing the cup and making the Champions League, because not making it in the Champions League will affect a lot of things. Obviously, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo would definitely leave the club if they don't play Champions League. The report suggesting that he will leave this summer for Sporting Lisbon to finish his career there. So it will be quite the story really for him. But aside from that, Juventus are really under some serious jeopardy this season. There's a lot of bad things could be happening. There's sanctions suggested from the UEFA on them as part of the UEFA Super League project, of course. That is as part of the European Super League, not the UEFA Super League project, where they could be banned from the Champions League for 2 seasons. So maybe they will end up making the Champions League for no reason anyway. But back to the footballing pitch, I think Juventus had one of the worst seasons of their career as of the last 10 years or so, against the Milan side, who are clinching to the last hope, I think, of keeping their spots in the Champions League pretty much alive and well. So the table of the Serie A reads before this fixture: Inter Milan with 82 points, Atalanta 69, as well as Juve and Milan, Napoli 67, Lazio 64, Roma with 55, Sassuolo with 53 points, 45 for Sampdoria, 42 for Verona, 39 for both Udinese and Bologna, Genoa with 36, Fiorentina 35, 34 for Torino and Spezia, Cagliari with 32, Benevento, Parma and Crotone with 31 points, 20 points and 18 points respectively at the bottom of the Serie A table. That's it from me for this episode. I was your boy, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Follow us on social media site PSP on Twitter, Pod on Instagram, listen on Spotify, Google Podcast or any other platform, and until next time, I'll see you soon.